Welcome to the second edition of Unfit to Print. This is a weekly U.S. news roundup working to cut through the billionaire-owned media's BS and keep you caught up with what you need to know. For those of you watching for history class in the far future, this will be November 4th, 2025 through November 11th, 2025. So it's been a huge week, so let's get into it. We've got an absolute failure for the Republicans in the special elections and an absolute betrayal from the Democrats on the government shutdown. The climate's crazy, healthcare's dying, the war drums are beating here, there, everywhere. But for where, I'm honestly losing track, and also just more corruption from Trump because that's just what he does. It was a blue wave last week in the 2025 special elections, and it wasn't just New York. We've got New Jersey and Virginia electing Democratic governors, the latter winning by 15 points. Off-year elections in Maine, Georgia, and Pennsylvania broke blue in Mississippi. Democrats broke the decades-long Republican legislative supermajority. And in California, Prop 50 passed, Governor Gavin Newsom's controversial proposal to redistrict California along the same lines as Texas. It's an emergency measure to fight fire with fire, and it also may lead to the balkanization of the United States. But you all want to hear about Zohran Mamdani, don't you? You know, for years, Barack Obama was blasted as a Muslim socialist from Africa, and while none of that was true about him, sure is about Mamdani, which didn't stop him from getting over 50% of the vote in a three-way race, capturing the attention of the nation and winning voters under 30 by 60 more points than his rival Cuomo. Mamdani won, frankly, by talking about what people give a damn about, which is food, housing, healthcare, transportation, affordability. He mobilized people to knock doors, make calls, and actually get out into the community in a bread and butter style of campaign. At his victory speech, he quoted socialist icon Eugene Debs and swore to fight for all New Yorkers. You know, you'd think the Democrats would be delighted at the good publicity, but instead, they are teeth-clenchingly supportive at absolute best and outright hostile at worst. New York Senator Chuck Schumer, and we will talk more about him, refused to say whether he'd voted for Mamdani. New York Governor Kathy Hochul immediately attacked his transportation policies. Liberal and centrist outlets downplayed the scale of his win against money and against media pressure. Meanwhile, the right-wing media went all in on the racism, showing clips of 9/11, scaremongering about Sharia law, predicting a 10% migration wave out of the city, screaming about roving gangs and Hamas, and in the Washington Post calling him Generalissimo Mamdani. And we don't even have to get started on the Israel lobby, whose racism, paranoia, and bigotry is loud, but not loud enough that we don't see that roughly 70% of Jewish Gen Zers and millennials in New York voted for Mamdani. Unlike the Israel lobby, these young people are committed as Jews, New Yorkers, and workers to fighting for a more affordable city. Propaganda be damned. Mamdani now faces a very tough battle to get any of his policies enacted. Less radical people than him, like Bill de Blasio, found themselves besieged by the fascist army known as the NYPD, the city's incredibly powerful real estate and hedge fund interests, and of course, being sabotaged by their own party. Will Mamdani impress us? Well, we'll see. Him naming every billionaire's personal nightmare and former FTC chief Leah Khan to his transition team, that's pretty badass, as is the formation of a new grassroots organization that will mobilize people to fight for the affordability agenda. On the other hand, he intends to keep Jessica Tisch as NYPD commissioner, who is a billionaire heiress who's overseen massive police violence under the Adams administration. In my book, it's important we not put our faith in individuals, but rather in mass movements. If Zohran is bringing more people into organization and mobilization and emboldening a fight back against the system, then he's a net good. The second he betrays the people, he must be held accountable. That is how real democracy works. That's real democracy. Then there's fake democracy. Because, folks, the Democratic Party did the thing it always does. It sold the hell out. After a month of shutdown that harmed the U.S. economy, denied millions of people full or partial pay, led to layoffs, furloughs, contract cancellations, and anxiety, led to chaos around SNAP benefits, after all that, which the Democratic Party said was worth it because they were fighting to protect American health care, they gave the Republicans everything they wanted. Now, let's be clear. The Republicans were losing the shutdown last week's elections show you that. The party and Trump's historic low polls show you that. The MAGA coalition show you that. They're fracturing. They're infighting. Here's what happened. 8 Democratic senators voted with the Republicans in a deal that would reopen the government in exchange for the Republicans pinky promising to hold a vote on insurance subsidies. These are the same insurance subsidies we discussed last week that are keeping over 20 million Americans' health care from more than doubling in cost, among other things. Now, before you say, well, that sucks, but it was only 8 Democrats, consider that the vote came after internal Democratic Party meetings and that the 8 were all senators not up for re-election anytime soon. Now, make no mistake, this was a strategic and unpopular decision by a Democratic leadership led by Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. And they just sold out poor and working Americans. One of the 8, Angus King, had the gall to go on CNN and say, fighting Trump isn't working. Now, we're talking about the same Trump who was just booed for 2 minutes straight at a Washington Commanders NFL game and left early in a huff. I mean, it's absurd. His polling is collapsing. His party is losing. Fighting Trump does work, and it's what the majority of Americans want right now. According to Midas Touch, roughly 80% of Democrats right now want a change in the party's upper leadership. This isn't a little shakeup. It's leading to huge consequences. Let's hear it from some core members of the Democrat coalition, like J.B. Pritzker from Illinois saying this wasn't a deal, this was an empty promise, or Ro Khanna, representative, calling on Schumer to step down, or Senator Chris Murphy saying you could convince yourself that the yielding stops the pain and brings you back to normal, but there is no normal. Submission emboldens the tyrant, the threat grows. Or Representative Mark Pocan calling it a horse shit deal, his words not mine. Or Gavin Newsom calling it a betrayal. Gavin Newsom, no radical, no socialist, no anti-democrat, no, as center of the line, as good a party man as you can get. Even they realize that this is a massive mistake and sellout. These people aren't radicals by any means, but they see the writing on the wall. This is a failure to act as an opposition party in any meaningful way. In my own opinion, this represents an intentional retreat to inflict pain on a working class populace that they despise and resent for their progressive leanings. If it hurts Trump's popularity, they're all for it, but if it doesn't, well, they still get to go home for their Thanksgiving vacation and smile thinking of all the poor folks who will have to get a third job to afford medication. More blood for the altar of Wall Street. If the Democratic Party wants to make a change, then a mere 23 senators are needed to depose Chuck Schumer from his current position. I'm skeptical whether they will, but happy to be surprised. Personally, I'm not going to focus my agitation on that, but on building people's movements that aren't accountable to the Democratic Party structure at all. We need these Democrats, and certainly these Republicans, taken from their seats and thrown out on their asses, figuratively or literally, so long as it gets them out of the way of those of us who really want to fight back against the Republican Party, Donald Trump, and their fascist agenda. And let's talk about those Republicans. They're more than happy to nuke healthcare from orbit with a smile. Majority Leader Mike Johnson in the House couldn't answer what the new healthcare plan was, but he said he had a notebook of ideas. I'm not kidding. Dr. Oz, our huckster Medicare and Medicaid chief, said they had plans but wouldn't show their cards right now. So that's awesome. They've got nothing. They want healthcare to be a damn free-for-all where the poor die and the rich profit. And let's be honest, it kind of is that already, but they're only going to make it worse. Speaking of the American government's greed, foreign policy news remains bleak as it is confusing. Our 51st state of Israel continues to violate the Gaza ceasefire daily and occupy roughly half the Gaza Strip, all while holding back critical aid from entering the beleaguered region. Airstrikes on Lebanon have increased, as per U.S. envoy Tom Barak's promise last week. President Joseph Aoun of Lebanon said that nearly a year has passed since the ceasefire came into effect, that is between Lebanon and Israel, and during that time, Israel has spared no effort to demonstrate its rejection of any negotiated settlement between the two countries. He followed by saying, "Your message has been received." Meanwhile, the U.S. has brought former al-Qaeda leader, head of the HTS, which is a radical sect of Sunni Islam, and mass butcher Ahmed al-Sharaa, once known as Abu Muhammad al-Jalani, to meet with Donald Trump in the White House. Now, al-Sharaa was the leader of a Turkish and U.S.-backed uprising that overthrew the Assad government in Syria last year. And this is a government that the U.S. spent decades destabilizing, especially during the Syrian civil war. Now, I'm not going to mince words about the Assad government. It was undemocratic, violent, and repressive. But that doesn't mean we need to cheer for a U.S.-backed rebrand of al-Qaeda to take the reins. HTS has already begun persecution of their political, ethnic, and religious enemies in Syria, from Christians to Shiites to Druze, as well as hamstringing Palestinian organizations operating out of Syria. As always, all of us should demand our government gets its bloody hands off of Syria for the sake of the region and off of everywhere. We have no right to meddle in foreign affairs. An update on the Venezuela situation. The U.S. is building up its forces in El Salvador now, which would allow for strikes on the nation from multiple directions, given the Caribbean fleet's position. Trump denies that there are currently plans to strike inside Venezuela, which contradicts his earlier statements, but boats continue to be blown up in the Caribbean, and I'll be real, all that firepower just isn't for nothing. But honestly, I'm almost past predictions at this point. Also, just a little side note. Did I mention both the U.S. and Russia are resuming live nuclear testing? Maybe worth watching. Trump is continuing his campaign of corruption by pardoning Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, and 6 others involved in the 2020 coup attempt. He further pardoned Troy Lake, a diesel businessman, for environmental crimes, and is reportedly considering a sentence commutation for Ghislaine Maxwell. Maxwell is already living cushy, relatively, in detention, where the Miami Herald recently reported prison officials have grumbled about, because of her connection to the White House, having to serve as her personal bitch and cater to her every whim. Still haven't gotten those files released either. Kind of suspicious, isn't it? In environmental news, droughts in the Middle East are leading to significant water shortages. The Iranian government has actually discussed having to partially or totally empty its capital of Tehran. Lashian Dam, one of Tehran's main water sources, is down to 10% capacity. We're talking about a metropolitan area of 17.8 million people, with another 3.4 million in Mashhad facing similar problems. Ironically, considering the lack of water in one region, back-to-back typhoons have slammed the Philippines. Casualty reports are still coming in, but deaths and injuries have been reported, with over 1.4 million people internally having to evacuate. Which honestly makes it no surprise that the UN High Commission for Refugees recently found that we have over 70,000 people displaced daily across the world by climate disaster over the last decade, and it's only going to escalate. This is a tragedy, and it is our responsibility to make it less of one by first cutting fossil fuel usage, and second, fixing how we handle refugees globally, because we are doing a damn poor job. Just ask the Trump admin, who's preparing to ship South Sudan's refugees back to Africa in the middle of a water crisis in a war that we are indirectly fueling, all while letting in white South Africans on spurious claims of oppression because they can't do apartheid anymore. But hey, the people keep fighting back. I'd like to highlight something really exciting in my own city of Atlanta, the capital of the South. Y'all know it's true. DSA socialist Kelsey Bond just won an election to Atlanta City Council in a 5-way race with a whopping 63% of the vote. Kelsey focused on affordability, housing, transportation, healthcare, all the same things that delivered Zohran his win in New York City. And in the same fashion, they mobilized hundreds of volunteers to hit the pavement and talk to Atlantans, and it paid off big time. Be it Georgia, New York City, or anywhere, working people want to live, love, work, play, study, sleep, eat, create, and dream with proper dignity. Only mass movements can deliver that. Alrighty, that's the rundown. If you want to hear me and my friends who are much smarter than me talk about some of this stuff at greater length, check out this week's episode of Workers Lit wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're listening to this on a podcast app, just wait. The discussion part will start momentarily. Remember, it is only by understanding this messed up world that we can work together to fix it. So until next week, I'm Jay, hating the ruling class, loving the working class, and trying to have some class. Bye. So I think everyone knows what the biggest news of the week is. The thing that's really making everybody feel something deeply. And it is that Mr. Beast is opening up a theme park in Riyadh, Saudi
Right.
Arabia, and which is why
Yeah.
we have brought on Workers Lit Mr. Beast correspondent Josh Boerman onto the podcast to give us all the updates. The expert on Mr. Beast is what I understand.
Yeah, glad to be
You are.
here. Been following Mr. Beast's career for quite a while now, and I think the exciting thing about Riyadh is that when you open something up there, you can make a lot of money, and I think that's what Mr. Beast is trying to do.
Well, and
Mm.
they take safety regulations at these parks very seriously over there because you can go there, you can see it on the sign. You must be this tall to Riyadh.
Jesus.
If there is
Come
one
on.
place in the world where you can like legally put someone in a big hole and leave them there for days, I think it's Saudi Arabia.
I
So,
think it's required.
yeah.
No, I really appreciate that the images of construction on it are all AI because presumably they don't want to show real images of construction. Pretty cool and definitely the top of the news. But when I saw that, I was like, oh my god, we need
Is Mr. Beast building the line?
No,
no.
that's first of all, that's in Saudi Arabia, first of all, and secondly, the line isn't getting built anymore.
That's
Mhm.
so sad. That's so
Line
sad.
go down.
No, the line doesn't go anywhere.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's,
All right. Well, that's not what we're actually here to talk about. Surely we will be talking about it when we get shipped off. I like the idea like everyone who gets deported for like political crimes will be sent to Mr. Beast's theme park of horrors in Saudi Arabia. I think that's a good timeline. I think that would
I
we
support.
deported 99 political prisoners, and you wouldn't believe what happened next.
Wait, do we have to build it or do we have to go on the rides? Like it's
You
No,
have
you
to
got to
Neuralink.
go.
go on the rides.
You have to go there. Yeah.
There are two tiers of theme park visitors. There are people going on the rides, and there are people who are paying much more to witness other people go on the rides.
Or actually,
Um,
they use political prisoners as like ride testers to see if the ride like beheads people when they go on it for the first time.
if it doesn't, then they don't
Wait,
use it
shit,
anymore.
this opens in 2 days. I better get my tickets.
Fuck
Yeah. Let's fucking
We're
go.
yeah, Josh, we were gonna surprise you with tickets.
Yeah, but then the government like shut down, so
Yeah, the
we couldn't
flights are
get to a
canceled. My
flight.
bad.
Yeah.
My bad. Atlanta's bad specifically, I hear.
Well, I mean, we'll see about that, won't we?
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, what we're here to actually talk about is a couple things. Y'all heard the news summary at the top, unless you skip directly to this part, which is fine, but maybe you'll be lost, and that's okay. But we've we had an election last week. It feels like a million years ago, but there was an election. I think we had an actual blue wave. How are people feeling? I'm wearing my this is an auditory medium, but I'm wearing my hat. It's a Bridges hat, which is pretty cool, but it also has my Georgia voter sticker on it because I am a hero of democracy. Just so everyone knows. But
Uh,
how we feeling?
well, I mean, I'm in New York, which I know is why you wanted to sort of have me on to get a sense of where things are at.
On top of the
Um,
Mr. Beast knowledge, yeah.
that's right. And I would say that I don't know. I don't think that we're going to see a significant vibe shift until he has actually entered office in terms
Sure.
of just how it impacts the day to day. I will say that, in my neighborhood, there's a lot of people who are very actively organizing for the campaign, volunteering to do lots of different things. And so a lot of people here are very, very excited about it. It is remarkable the way that, in terms of just his campaign, it was able to really overcome almost all of the traditional ethnic blocks in the way that they sort of solidly go in favor of like whoever has done the most patronage in the past, right? Like in the primary, the whole idea was, Andrew Cuomo, no black voter will ever vote for Zohran Mamdani because Andrew Cuomo's got that shit on lock. And of course, that proved to be completely untrue. It just turns out that like when a politician campaigns toward the needs of a given population, that population actually is willing to vote for him, which is fucking crazy.
There is this
I,
kind of weird condescending thing that people do with black voters, which is like they all have their favorite white guy that they will like. I don't know.
Andrew
It's so
Cuomo,
just like
yeah.
it's I don't know. It just feels very like dehumanizing. Like I don't know. It's weird.
Well, nobody really ever liked Andrew Cuomo, right? And that's the thing. Other than a handful of people who like saw it, still remember his big press conferences that he gave on TV, like during the initial acute period of the pandemic, and saw him on TV and was like, oh, well, this is a leader, and never really looked into anything else that he was doing, right? Those people are still, the dedicated core of his actual support. But almost everybody else, I think, was voting for him either out of ignorance or fear or some combination of the two. And those two go hand in hand.
Yeah.
I still remember Cuomo sexual being a thing. Do y'all remember that a million years ago?
No.
that was a
Nauseating.
that was a Twitter trend in 2020, and it was also I think that Randy Ramos song about being horny for Andrew
Right.
Cuomo.
Well, I'm old enough to remember the boyfriend cliff. Y'all remember the boyfriend cliff?
Wait, no. What's the boyfriend cliff?
You don't remember there was that weird piece of art or whatever that he commissioned, and it was like, let me see if I can dig this
The
up.
boyfriend
Andrew Cuomo boyfriend cliff. He commissioned this very strange piece of art. Here, I'll go ahead and throw a link to this in chat. Where and if you look at this thing, it's just so very deeply strange, but it's like a mural of what he did during the pandemic, and it's supposed to be a visualization of flattening the curve. You remember that?
Yeah.
And underneath it are all sorts of different things that happened under his administration, and you will see that one piece of this was the boyfriend cliff, where I guess this was well, nobody really knew what this meant, actually. Everybody just saw the boyfriend cliff and they were like, what is going on here?
Well, that's
So
where
when
the
you
entrance
fall-
to Osama bin Laden's mountain fortress was.
Oh,
The boyfriend
okay.
cliff.
When you fall off the boyfriend cliff, is that getting a boyfriend or not getting a boyfriend?
So
I've heard it, yeah. Like Boyfriend Island, you know?
I think what they were going for here, my understanding of what they were going for here was the idea of like, you're at the point in the pandemic where your relationship, because you've been stuck inside together for so long, is starting to fall apart. Like
Been
that's
there.
the boyfriend cliff and you're just barely hanging on.
All right. Okay.
I prefer the interpretation though that this is just a boyfriend whose name is Cliff. To me,
Yeah.
that's funny.
The art, like the vibes of this art, it's reminding me a little bit of the Problems Clown. It's giving me that energy.
I miss the Problems Clown.
Oh man, really?
We needed
God.
him. We needed the Problems Clown to run for office. My understanding is he's going to get
It's
an
like
appointment.
it's
to
like
Trump.
I think it's like an incel meme where it's like a man and a clown is like throwing like axes at him.
Oh, I see this.
and then a woman like
a
hugs
classic.
him. Yeah, that's the
and
that's
then it makes
the
a
Problems
shield
Clown.
that protects the man
Yeah.
and woman from the
I'm
problems.
seeing this is quite the image. I've never seen this little video where the loving wife has put up the barrier that repels the knives of the Problems Clown and eventually destroys the Problems
Yeah.
Clown
This
entirely.
is proof. For those of us who have wives, this is absolutely how it works.
That
It
happened.
happened to me.
What is Zohran's plan to get rid of Problems Clowns for the men that do not have wives all around the city?
Well, frankly, I don't think that's his problem. I think that he's got a wife who's going to take care of his own personal problems, Clown, and it's one of those things where he's just got to stay focused on his own needs first and foremost, at least in this regard.
The Problems
wife
Clown
is
comes
really
for all of
hot.
us. When you said boyfriend Cliff, I just thought of the great tweet from 2020 where Cuomo posted a picture of his family and Jennifer Rubin replied, "The boyfriend," end quote, "looks nice, and the girls seem to have eaten their spaghetti and meatballs." And it's
That's
one
a
of my favorite
classic.
replies of all time.
That's
Get out of the
It's just
house
a
right
really
now. We do not have a problems clown.
deeply strange post that,
You know
that
what?
sticks in my mind.
I wonder if the boyfriend Cliff had something to do with this, maybe.
That was April 19th,
He was
2020.
memeing.
I think actually maybe that is what it was the boyfriend Cliff was to do specifically with his daughter's boyfriend.
Andrew Cuomo is
Is he
keeps
owning
abreast.
his daughter in in some art he commissioned?
He owned his daughter by making her speak at that Hot Girls for Cuomo event. That was really good.
Oh, God.
That was really good.
That's
Well, the girls seem to have
disgusting.
eaten their spaghetti and meatballs, so at the end of the
do.
day,
Yeah.
That's what's important.
hot
So-
girls stay eating.
I gotta ask, Josh, how long? When did Zohran come on your radar, and when did it seem like, oh, this might actually be a thing in New York? I'm curious.
Well, I remember the original campaign announcement, which was that really interesting video, and a series of interesting videos. And I remember seeing it at that time and being like, okay, well-made video to be sure, but also I've seen this shit before.
Sure.
Here is a very idealistic progressive who seems to have relatively little experience. And more often than not with these candidates, what ends up happening is it doesn't take too long before it becomes very clear that they don't actually have the juice, that they are
Sure.
able to be visually packaged effectively. But then the moment that they have to actually start talking, it's very bad and cringe, and they're way too online. And so that was kind of
such a good speaker.
Yes. And that's the thing, right? Was I didn't know that yet. Because anybody can look good in a video, but there's
Right.
a big difference between looking good in a video and looking good on the campaign trail. And so as he, started to develop his platform, that was when I started to see the posters around town, the posters that sort of had his key campaign planks. And again, the ground game for this campaign was very good from the very beginning, just in terms of getting the campaign signage distributed. And that's when I started to be like, okay, this guy's got some pretty serious organizational heft behind him. And then, it was really when it started to get down the stretch against Cuomo in the primary, and when he started to get the labor endorsements, I was like, oh, this is he's gonna win.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing him. I think I saw him because I think Hassan interviewed him on his stream when he was polling at 1%. And that's how I saw him, because there were clips everywhere.
Leading to Andrew Cuomo asking in a debate, do you condemn Hassan Piker? Which is one of the funniest clips I've ever fucking seen.
The slow blending of online versus not online has been fascinating to watch.
Andrew Cuomo should not know who Hassan Piker is.
Also, I know this is a little bit of a sidebar, but just in general, the phrase, do you condemn whatever, is just so fucking funny to me, because it's it is such a bizarre thought-terminating cliche where no matter what you say, whether you condemn or do not condemn the thing in question, you will always lose when you try to operate on those terms. You just have to treat the question as what it is, which is bad faith, and move on.
Right. It's not a real question. It's just, do you concede to my framing of this issue?
Right. Nobody
who asks that question, if you say yes, I condemn it, is going to be like, oh, we're friends then. No, that's never happened.
No.
You got to be what's his face? Norm Finkelstein. You just got to talk for 30 minutes about whether or not you condemn Hamas and then get there eventually.
I'm not sure that I would agree that you have to be
I think you have to. Did you know Norm Finkelstein walks the circumference, the distance of the circumference of Gaza every day?
Wow.
I believe it. I believe it.
How interesting guy.
I know.
Yeah, listen to him on Palestine specifically.
Yeah, only.
Yeah.
But yeah, the ground game, Josh, as well. It's, you really see what drove one campaign over the other in exit polling. That asked voters, okay, when you cast your votes, did you vote for this guy versus against this guy? And I remember this, for Mamdani, it was in the 72-75% range, voted for Mamdani, believed in this guy's political project. Cuomo, it was almost 50-50, voted for this guy, voted against Mamdani. It was a politics of fear and frankly bigotry that Cuomo was stoking.
Yeah.
You gotta
I
be a
And
real
frankly,
freak to vote for Cuomo.
I mean, I grew up Arab and Muslim in the Bush era. Like my dad is Muslim. I was raised Catholic by my mom, but like my dad's Muslim, so technically I'm Muslim too. And like the racism, like the anti-Arab and like anti-Muslim sentiment is worse now, which is insane.
Yeah.
It's worse than it was after 9/11, which is crazy. Like that as a Palestinian, I have experienced the most racism that I ever have in my whole life in the last couple of years. It's really crazy.
I think that too there's something about this campaign that obviously Mamdani himself has experienced that and didn't back off of it, you know?
Yeah.
I think that he had so desperately wanted to run a campaign where he didn't have to talk about that shit, but it was so clear that that was going to be untenable. And you can only get asked, do you condemn Hamas so many times before you just can't fucking take it anymore?
The
And
fact
and
that
just
they asked him like, "Are you going to go to Israel?" Like, what the fuck? Like,
as mayor of New York. Yeah.
what do you mean?
It is shocking how much and how visible it was. Like, I know New York City is like the most important city in this country, but like typically we don't hear about it that much down here in Georgia. And it has been, I'm telling you, when I go to the gym, because that's how I keep track of what's on the news, like the cable news, because I do read some of the outlets, but I do not watch them. When I go to the gym, it's like been wall to wall, like for months. It is. I've never been there for more than an hour where this like election has not come up. Fox News has been my favorite because there's been some great like edits of like Mamdani into Soviet posters, like from the
Oh
50s
yeah.
and stuff like that. That's been pretty sick. But no, I show like it's literally just like Fox News, I think today at the gym played like the 9/11 getting like the towers getting hit on 9/11 three times today. Like while I'm
Why?
at the gym. It's fucking insane. I'm like, I don't even know what they're saying because half the time the volume's turned off, but I like look up, I'm like, what? Like what are we doing? It is and it's not I was about to say it's not working, but it is working on a certain subsection of people, the people they're
Okay.
trying to fire up.
Well, Jacob, I think it's very problematic that you would sort of belittle 9/11 on this, the uh, 24-year and 2-month anniversary of that horrible
Fuck.
day.
Yeah, it's Veterans Day, isn't it?
It's Veterans Day. It's Armistice Day.
Veterans
Yeah.
of 9/11.
Everybody get your poppy out.
So what we have now, yeah, he was able to Mamdani was able to overcome that. I mean, overcome that is relative, right? Because the bigotry got stoked and like you can
Right.
say, oh, we were just doing it for an election, but like the hatred stays and it burns the same way the language around trans people, the same way the language around migrants stirs up the
The
way
thing
people act interpersonally.
that's really fucked me off is like Zoran, like the Democrats having to be like dragged kicking and screaming to endorse um Zoran. And some of them didn't even do it.
Schumer
And
said he
then
wouldn't say who he voted for.
that fucking white guy in Maine has a Nazi tattoo on his chest.
Mhm.
And people and there's like nothing about it. And it just it like every so often I get into like a mindset where I'm like, okay, racism, sure, but you know, we live, it's the 21st century. Am I making it up? I am not making it up. Like
there's
you,
there is so the impulse to move heaven and earth, to launder your politics through a supposed redemption arc for a white person, rather than seek out a marginalized person with, better politics is shocking to me. Like, it's the same sort of impulse that drove that outpouring of support for Erica Kirk in the wake of, Charlie's assassination, because, oh no, like, she's going to be abused by the other conservatives and maybe she'll have a change of heart, and then, that didn't end up happening. It is wild to me, this fascination with the redemptive power of question mark. We'll get back to that later. Like, yeah, it's astonishing.
Do y'all think that JD and Erica are fucking, by the way?
Undoubtedly.
You know, I've given this some deep thought, and I think that it's
How
the
deep?
funniest outcome is
Deep
if
thought.
I think about it every day. No, after giving it deep thought, I think the funniest idea is if they are making out and nothing else, and JD is getting too scared.
They're
Oh, they're
just
doing
getting to
just-
first base. Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Yes.
just doing over the clothes stuff.
Mm-hmm. And JD every time is like, my wife, but she's a heretic. But and then he like freaks out and gets kicked out every single time.
My heart says yes, but my Lord says no.
They're quoting scripture back and forth about why they can or can't fuck. It's great.
I think I've said this before on this podcast, not this podcast specifically, but the Socialist Shelf. Before, I think I have said that it takes a deep kind of pervert to convert to Catholicism as an adult.
Yeah.
Like, Catholicism is something that you have thrust upon you. Like, you grow up doing that shit, and then stuff seems normal to you, and then you get out, and you're like, oh, it's not normal to always feel intense guilt about everything.
I mean, most of the like really weird guys who we cover on Ill Conceived are people who converted to Catholicism.
Well, and I wonder, Josh, like, what drives that impulse, right? Because surely there's no shortage of Protestant sects here that are as top-down authoritarian as they imagine Catholicism, these adult converts, to be.
Catholicism is flagged out.
I'm sure that drives not an insignificant portion of it.
Yeah, I think it's less to do with the hierarchy and more to do with the sense that these are like ancient rituals that are grounded in something that is grander than what Protestantism can offer, right? The liturgies and the rituals and the sacraments and all that.
Yeah.
It's lore, right? It's like, it's why some of them are like now saying, "Oh, Catholicism's out. Russian Orthodox is
yeah.
Like
okay, that is even more that's worse pervert shit. Like, that is like higher on the pervert level. Like, yeah, it occurred to me, I don't think I've ever been to a Christian church service. You guys don't call it mass, right?
I've been to a Russian, or actually I think it was a Greek Orthodox church.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say those churches are just gorgeous.
They're beautiful.
I mean, they're so pretty.
Yeah,
so I guess if you are a primarily visually oriented person and you want to sort of be enraptured in the sights, sounds, and smells of something that feels sacred, I can understand how an Orthodox liturgy might give you that in a way that Protestantism certainly does not.
But these people don't want to go to liturgy. These people want to post like pictures of like statues and like, you know, cathedrals and shit. Like, I guarantee you they go to one of these services, because I have been to a Greek Orthodox service once, and it was long and there was a lot going on and it was complicated and they did not hold your hand and it was cool. And even with all of that newness, I was exhausted by the end. And I like to think I probably have a better attention span than most of these people.
The only time I've ever felt any sort of like Catholic emotion is in Italy, like going to like Santa Maria del Fiore or something like that, and seeing like those big, like feeling history is the only time I've ever really felt any sort of like emotion, religious emotion. Because it's just so like, I mean, like recently I watched Midnight Mass, because when you guys covered it on Worst of All, AJ and I were talking about it, and I decided to watch it, and I still like have the whole mass memorized, which is weird because I haven't been to church since I was 15.
Yeah, but it's not going to go anywhere. It's just stuck there now.
Yeah, it gets in your bones.
Me and the Apostles' Creed. I used to say that every single morning.
That's right.
Stand up, and my school would go, "Christians, what do you believe?" And then we would say the Apostles' Creed. And then two of my teachers would get in an argument about certain like what specifically should be said inside the Apostles' Creed and whether they should have the line about Jesus descending into hell or descending into the grave. And
but that is true as hell. I mean, I believe in God the Father, Almighty Creator of heaven and earth. I believe in Jesus Christ, His only Son, our Lord, who is conceived by the Holy Spirit and born of the Virgin Mary. He suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, died, was buried, he descended to hell, and the third day He rose again from the dead. He ascended to heaven and seated at the right hand of God the Father Almighty. From there He will come to judge the living and the dead. I believe in the Holy Spirit, the fucking Catholic Church, the community of saints.
Christian or Catholic Church, yes.
the fucking Catholic Catholic Church, yeah.
the resurrection of the body and the life everlasting, or something like that.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Does every Protestant sect have like the doxology at the end, or is that just some of them?
There, it gets complicated. It depends on the sect, and it even depends on the. I love non-denominational churches that have changed the Apostles' Creed significantly. I attended one once that they like changed so much stuff in it. It was like the Message Bible version of it was so fucking cool.
As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be.
I don't know anything about like what you do in like a Christian church, because like I literally asked Brian the other day. I was like, "Do you guys do communion?" I was like, "I don't even know."
We did.
But it means something different, right?
Yeah, it's not
like,
blood. It's not the body and blood of Christ.
No, it's not literally that.
Yeah.
It's your way of sort of tapping into the tradition of remembering Jesus by, eating the bread and drinking the grape juice.
to try to do a really really big segue here. When
we did religion corner.
No, speaking of religion, I did want to say, like, what does it mean though about the country that despite all of it, like really aggressive bigotry, that Mamdani can win a commanding, majority in New York City after they pull out every trick in the book? And I guess I'm curious, do we what do we think that says about national politics, or do we think that's just like a New York specific politics? Because obviously like Mississippi or Georgia is going to be different than New York City.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to elect a Zohran Mamdani mayor of Atlanta, right?
Probably
like
not.
that's not happening. But I do think that it something that is important to note is that Mamdani, in being as aggressively anti-Zionist as he was running up against one of the largest religious communities in New York City, which is to say Orthodox and ultra-Orthodox Jews. And these are people who, by and large, see the existence of the modern Israeli state as a commandment from, like, God, like actual God. And as such, they see support of the Zionist state as a divine commandment, essentially.
Right.
And so I guess you could look at that and you could say, okay, well, and if you look at the voting results, you will see that the neighborhoods that were most stridently opposed to Mamdani, or the ones that supported Cuomo the most, were, of course, either those very religious Jewish neighborhoods and the Russian neighborhoods, right? So it was Zionists and anti-communists basically were the two sort of groups that were most supportive of Cuomo. But I would imagine that a lot of these lessons can map onto other parts of the country in terms of, you're going to be up against different religious groups. And generally speaking, it's going to be evangelical Christians if you're in much of the country, or more observant Catholics if you're up in the Northeast. Either
Mormons
way,
in one particular place.
Mormons in Utah and Idaho to a lesser extent, exactly. But in a lot of cases, you're able to marshal literally everybody else to your cause.
Right.
And so then the religious extremists, although they do generally vote en bloc, and I think would against a similar candidate were one to run in another state, they are still significantly outnumbered because of the fact that they are, in fact, an extremist religious minority.
Well, I do find it encouraging. I do find the numbers encouraging that I looked at. Young Jewish voters in New York City, millennials and Gen Z, like it was like roughly 70% voted for Mamdani, and I find that to be extremely encouraging, and the way things are headed.
I also just think that Zoran's use of, I think that he just found a really good line and hit it a lot, and part of it has to do with the fact that Zionists love to conflate Zionism and Judaism.
Yeah.
And so when they say to him, do you think that Israel has the right to exist as a Jewish state? He can hit I think that Israel should exist as a democracy where everyone has equal rights. And it's really hard to get normal Americans to disagree with that.
Yeah. That is a tough thing to push back on when you say a country should have equal rights. When you come back with nuh-uh, it's like, okay, now you sound like a freak.
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, this is a state that can have equal rights for everybody, whether they be Jewish or whatever else. Or you can have a state that prioritizes one class of people above the others. Those are your options.
Yep.
Exactly.
And we are a country that very much prioritizes one group, one class above the others. So certainly glass houses and stones and all that, but
Right. But I mean, I think at least like intellectually, Americans, I've talked about this before, but Americans care deeply about fairness or think that they do. Like the reason, there's a reason that the trans thing that really started sticking was the sports thing.
Yeah.
Because they pitched it as like, this is unfair.
Yep.
And that is like a really good in with Americans, because even though we like our team sports here, like that's mostly what Dems and Republicans is, we think that we really care about freedom and fairness and equal rights.
It's also an interesting difference, I think, between US and UK politics, because I've been thinking about this a lot too, right? Like, could a Zohran Mamdani become the mayor of London, let's say, right? And I don't know, right? Because in the UK, so much of their thing is we all suffer and we suffer together because that is our lot in life, which is a little different from the American focus on like things require fairness. Therefore, it is unfair for somebody to be doing so much better than somebody else, unless they're billionaires, obviously, and then they're elect and whatever. But it's less the idea of fairness being an aspiration, which I think Americans hold, versus an albatross around your neck, right? A weight, the fairness of shared austerity in the British way. I don't know. I don't know if any of this makes sense. Just a thought.
Josh, it makes me think of a British student that, an immigrant British student that was at my high school who once said to me, she said, if you want to understand where I come from, she was talking about her town, but it probably applies to the whole country. She says, they were never happier than and never stopped talking about the Blitz. They wished it was the Blitz forever. Like that was the happiest they ever were. And I was like, what are you talking about? She was like, they always are like, remember then because we had this. And it's like, wow, just like that, like self-flagellation as a culture, I guess. I don't.
Very,
not self-flagellation
Catholic,
that was inflicted on them, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, you just, I mean, go read The Splendid and the Vile by Eric Larson, right? You know, so much of the solidarity and of the character building that is part of the myth making about the Blitz is just that myth making. You know, you had squalor and overcrowding in the bomb shelters. Right. You had, waves of suicides. You had an incredible national trauma that nowadays, like, it seems that people are being primed to relive again, not as explosively perhaps, but in a more slow and grinding fashion.
You also had C.S. Lewis on the mic every night reading Mere Christianity's original script on the BBC. Like
that probably caused waves of suicides.
I would imagine so. Yeah.
And of course, you did have children becoming monarchs of fantasy lands, as me and Lenore and Aisha discussed on our Narnia episode way back when.
And I think bringing it then back to America again, at least in New York, right? I do think that there is also a bit of that sense of shared suffering where for some stupid fucking reason, there are a lot of New Yorkers who will see certain objectively shitty things about this city. Like how, for instance, there's garbage everywhere and be like, well, that's New York. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I do think that in spite of that, there is an appetite for change. You just have to be clear about what you want that change to be. And again, I think it's to the credit of the Mamdani campaign that not only was he clear about those policy intentions, I should say, that even at the very speech that he gave, the acceptance speech for when he won the election, right? That he once again brought up those policy priorities.
Right.
He knows that like people are ultimately going to judge him based on whether those things pass or not. And if he passes one, he'll get reelected. If he passes 2, people will love him. He'll get reelected, and also everybody will love him. And then if he passes 3 or 4, he could probably just do like what Michael Bloomberg did and just like keep running for extensions over and over and over again, and basically just become mayor for life if that's what he wants.
Yeah, I think he also has a pretty good, like, I know that New Yorkers love to hate the mayor, like, but um I think even like if he gets some of those things blocked, he has a very, very good pathway to being like, these are the villains that stopped me from being able to give you the free stuff that I want to give you.
Well, if he is willing to have that kind of direct confrontation with, forces in his own party, which he has to an extent against Andrew Cuomo, this is kind of something I wanted to get into. Where do we see, and we're not in the business of predictions necessarily, but we've trying to think about where things are going. Where do we see this going forward? Because there's some really encouraging things about Mamdani's transition team. I noticed I think was it Lena Khan being put in charge of the transition team? I mean, like, that's about as good a choice as you can make. But there's concerns about Jessica Tisch staying as NYPD commissioner.
Right.
There's concerns about whether he wants to play ball or fight against the Democratic Party. Again, he's not in office yet. We don't know. But and to me, a lot of that is not something we can predict, but we can more so say this is why it's important not to put our faith in individuals, but in movements. And he is useful insofar as he has brought thousands of people into mobilization, more people into organization, and he's helping form an organization to carry out his policy agenda, which I think is really useful, a grassroots org.
Yeah.
But I don't know, what are people thinking about like the future? I guess, Josh, from the perspective too of like, I don't know, what are people expecting on the ground there?
I mean, again, I can only speak for myself. I don't know that I can speak for the average New Yorker, but I think my biggest concerns are not to sound like a Republican, but like, how is he going to pay for it is actually a major concern.
Sure.
The fact that it's not that the money can't be raised, it absolutely can. It's that the political will to do so requires that a lot of different levels of power be bought in. And as regards its budget, the city of New York is almost entirely hamstrung by the will of the state of New York. So anything to do with like raising taxes or spending hikes for that matter, like anything that would significantly impact the budget does require the sign off of Albany. Now, there's a few things here, right? First of all, Kathy Hochul now I think is in a position where she knows that in order to continue to have the support of the populace, she needs to act in a more decisively progressive fashion. I also think that she, from the experience with congestion pricing, where she briefly walked congestion pricing back and then put it back in again, after Trump almost fucked the entire thing, I think she realized that like acting in this sort of like, oh, well, maybe we'll try to come to a reasonable solution for everybody. That doesn't really work. That doesn't really wash, particularly when the federal government has every intention of kneecapping any and all form of federal funding to both the city and state, right? So she's incentivized, I think, to cooperate with the city. However, there are still big questions about these budgetary things because, like with the buses, for instance, you're talking about, I want to say, a $750 million, what would be in the short term shortfall from the fares that you would no longer be collecting from the buses. I think that eventually those are the sorts of things that will pay for themselves in terms of increased productivity along bus lanes, things like that. Just having a more efficient city, people get more time back. But those are things that are a lot harder to quantify. And again, if you have this hole in your budget now, you have to find somewhere to get that money from. That's going to require action from the state level. I don't know what that's going to look like. And this is just sort of the thing with all of his proposals in general, where it does become incumbent on progressives and the left to organize for these things. I just don't know what happens when the rubber hits the road on it, genuinely.
Yeah. As for like playing ball with the Democrats, I'm sure that there will be be some of that. Like I said on the last episode we did, he doesn't want to get de Blasio'd. Hence the reason that I think that he has been so conciliatory to the NYPD.
Yeah, that's right. They were like essentially, the NYPD was essentially giving death threats. Like they were more or less being like, "We will kill your daughter."
Yeah, they were making they were on their message boards talking about her in sexual ways, talking about sexually assaulting her and stuff. And that was just known that was normalized in the department.
Yeah. So although the speech that the victory speech he gave was very aggressive, way more aggressive than I was expecting. I was expecting the usual, well, now is the time that we all come together. And he was like, fuck you guys, actually. Right. I hope you die.
I never wanted to hear Cuomo's name again. Yeah.
And I think I noticed how angry he seemed in the first 5-10 minutes of the speech. And I didn't find out until later. Cuomo never called him to concede.
Nope.
So that's probably why he was so mad. And there might have been a conciliatory line in there or two about Cuomo, but I'm sure that if that was the case, he struck it right before going on stage.
I wish him only the best in private life.
Yeah.
Yes, he said, I wish him the best in private life, but let this be the last time I utter his name.
I hope so.
Bars.
Also, quoting Mario Cuomo was bars too. He was like, a former mayor once said, and then, or a former governor or something, and then he quotes Cuomo's dad, which is I don't know. That is really I fucking know where you live, asshole. I'm coming for you in your sleep.
And quoting Eugene Debs too. I mean, that's
right off the bat. Yeah. First line being quoting Eugene Debs was that I was kind of floored by that, actually.
This one's for the real fans.
Yeah.
It's maybe the first speech that I've ever heard being given and been like, oh, this is going to be in textbooks. This is going to be a speech that people actually quote.
He's speaking exactly as he needs to speak to win as a Democrat, certainly. With the nods to labor, with the, exact right amount of shade thrown at the opponents, which I think a lot of people are desperate for. I think a lot more people want to see energy that's no, you're a moron, shut up at their enemies. As far as the NYPD goes, I'll be very, very interested to see what the response is exactly from the department as well. Because he says, and I've heard conflicting things about what this may mean. It's the old "we will work with police to reduce crime" refrain. Right. I don't know what that's going to look like. I think if he does, he said before that he wants to cut their PR budget, if not the main thing. Again, I don't know what it looks like. I think if he tries anything, I would not be surprised to see, anybody who's read Propaganda can expect some performative malingering from the police that will then be blamed on a crime wave that does not actually exist. Yeah. I would definitely watch the headlines about crime over the next year.
It's going to be awesome. Josh, I hate to tell you, but you're about to be living in Mad Max, according to most stations.
Well, here's the thing, right? The thing I'm most worried about, if we want to talk about genuine fears, is that I was just in Chicago a few weeks ago, and have any of you been in Chicago in the past few months?
Not lately.
Can't say I have.
I don't think it's hard to put it into words other than to say that it's a low-level war zone at this point. And not in the way that Republicans talk about Chicago being a war zone,
I was in D.C. a few months ago, though, so.
Sure, yeah. It's like that, but more. You have entire neighborhoods where people just don't go outside anymore. And knowing how that dang Cheeto in the dang White House seems to want to continue to deploy against places that he sees as being opposed to him, and knowing his tremendous antipathy toward the city of New York more broadly, I would not be surprised to see a sort of deployment like that of ICE to New York. And obviously with the budget that was passed, they now do have the resources that are necessary to make that happen. I'm actually a lot less worried about like the National Guard and all that, because that is obviously bad. But I've already seen now from on the ground that the real stormtroopers here are ICE.
Right.
And again, there's so many of them. And that's not to say that I feel like, oh God, we're all fucked. There will be resistance on the ground. There must be. There are community leaders here who have already seen what has happened in other cities and are working on developing proactive organizing strategies so that we can be ready to hit the ground running when it happens. But that is, I think, at this time, my single greatest fear. And then when you throw, the country and maybe the world's largest and most militarized police force into the mix, I'm genuinely not sure what happens.
Yeah.
And I mean, you have Trump saying if Mamdani gets in his way, he'll have him arrested. Now, Trump says a lot of shit, but who knows, right?
Right.
But I'll say, yeah, but the fight back definitely happening at the community level. But unfortunately, as of right now, it seems like starting to give up at the congressional level. It seems like the history's longest shutdown, for which many of us have had a bad time. The thing that we were basically all told, right? We have to be willing to suffer. We have to be willing to fight. We have to be willing to lose SNAP benefits or whatever, so that we can keep these healthcare subsidies, so that we can win this fight. And we saw nationally Trump's reputation getting tarnished. We saw, obviously, with all these elections, the Republicans lost. You have Trump admit on Truth Social, the shutdown is hurting us electorally. And then you have the Democratic Party with 8 very strategically chosen senators who aren't up for re-election soon, voting to cave and saying, well, the Republicans will have the Republicans say we'll have a vote in a couple weeks about it or something. Yeah. And already Mike Johnson in the House is like, yeah, we'll see if there will be a vote. Not sure.
Yeah, and they did do the vote in the Senate, and guess what? They voted no. Oh God! Oh dear! Oh jeez!
Who could have seen this one coming?
Also, it is astonishing to me that anybody still falls for this shit.
I mean, I don't think anybody does. Like, I don't think any of the Democrats who caved for a second think that the Republicans were actually going to come to the table. I think they started to care about this when flights were being impacted.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely right, Aisha. That is their concern. I'm talking about the people who are convinced the Democrats are playing like 12-dimensional Mancala or whatever.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I will say again, this is anecdotal, but having looked around on Blue Sky, which is like the home for people who would have fallen for it again, it seems that even they are no longer falling for it.
Mm.
I mean, you have Midas Touch, which is the closest thing to like a Democratic Party newsletter that exists. I actually think they make some cool shit, but still,
that guy is crazy.
Yeah, like that they have a lot underneath them. That like there are some good journalism that gets done underneath the banner. But all that to say, also some crazy shit. But like even they're like, oh yeah, no, we have to oust Schumer immediately. Like it was within like minutes they put out a thing on their Substack. Like they're like, get rid of him. They posted a poll that's like, and in the polls, vary, but it's like something like 80% of the Democratic Party, if you ask them that like there needs to be leadership changes, they say yes. But that's
nuts. I
you need
can't
what,
remember
27 Democrats in the Senate to do it.
I can't remember the last time that the Democrats had this much leverage.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the last time the Democrats had this much leverage in the Senate, and I don't think I'm exaggerating here, was under the Obama administration during the first term.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they had the Senate and the House. And they had 59 seats or something like that.
And it's a different type of leverage, obviously. It's opposition leverage as opposed to governing leverage. But the
Republicans really make that work for them. Oppositional leverage. So the Democrats can too. But
they don't.
I know.
And that's the point, right? But they had him by the fucking balls. And I think it has been very interesting seeing a lot of people understand who didn't seem to understand before despite the many, many times that we have seen this happen. But now they finally understand that the purpose of the Democrats is not to be an opposition party.
Right.
No.
Yep, there are, and it's interesting to see the communication inside of it, because you now have like representatives in Congress, the ones who are willing to speak out a little bit, like someone like Ro Khanna saying maybe we should just abolish the Senate, like being said on social media,
Let's
and,
fucking
even
go.
like the people who are poised to run in 2028, who like know how this thing works. I'm thinking of JB Pritzker and Gavin Newsom. Both of
Right.
them have put out statements calling this a betrayal,
Right.
because they know how bad this fucking looks. But here's the thing, at the end of the day, that these senators who voted this way, and the rest of the senators, or at least most of them, do not care about the healthcare for 20 million, 21 million people. And that's the number of people that are on these healthcare programs that it's going to go up. That's not counting the people who can't afford healthcare, that were like scrapping together money to try to get into those programs, nor the rest of us like who get money through our employer, but or get insurance through our employer, but those premiums very well could go up.
Yeah. I haven't had insurance all year because I got laid off last year. And
Yeah.
and at this rate, I'm like, I have no idea how expensive it's going to be for me to get onto Obamacare.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's something to sort of, I don't know, take a step back and look at the even bigger picture too. It's not just about this policy failure, although it is that. I think that this also slots into a broader pattern that we have seen since about like 9 months into the pandemic, where the idea of public health, just the very concept of public health itself, seems to no longer exist as a policy priority in the United States at all with either party.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was a debate I got in with family member the other day. We got into talking about like, well, what is your responsibility to other people? Because he was making the case like, well, vaccine mandates, whatever. We were talking about all that, and I was like, okay, but like whether or not you need it for yourself, which you do, but like even conceding that point, like if you conceded that point, what is your responsibility to other people around you? Like the same way that like you shouldn't drink and drive, the same way that you shouldn't, um, spill toxic chemicals in your neighbor's yard. What is your responsibility with public health, both having a public health system and also like having these conceptions of how we need to like interact with each other. And like you said, like COVID proved that like COVID proved we could, and that we chose not to, I think. Is what I think of. Like COVID proved how much state capacity there still is even in this thing, and then also how much just gets glossed over. And it's ridiculous. But also, at the end of the day, if these 20 million, 21 million people have to go get third and fourth jobs, that actually works out for like, Democrats and Republicans. It makes the line go up.
Yeah, but does it though? I mean, that's the thing.
It does. They think
I don't
it
even
does.
think I don't. But that's the thing. I don't even think by their own logic that makes sense. Like. No, go ahead.
I have to assume they think it does.
Well, yeah. I mean, if we want to talk about the line going up, if we want to talk about the utility of, quote unquote, getting the economy moving again, getting people back out into their offices and whatnot. I mean, we only have to look at GDP figures for this year. All of our economic growth is coming from speculation, from AI, and otherwise it's stagnant.
There is, in my, like, the games industry has cratered. Like, it is bananas. There is maybe, I apply for maybe, like, a job a week, and that's all there is. And it's like, thousands and thousands of people all competing for one job.
Mm-hmm.
It's bonkers.
And I mean, you see that in tech. You see these layoffs happening. You see this AI bubble, Jesus Christ. And we're just going to wait for that one to pop, I guess. But like, you are right, Josh, though, that even on the merits of their own, what they think, how they think the economy should work, what they think is best, people like being well enough to go to work is important to have the GDP go up. But I guess I don't know if it's ideological. I don't know if they're just making the wrong calculations. I don't know what's going on in these people's heads that they think that it is ultimately good for the project of like, capitalism and the United States to further immiserate people. I mean, I just genuinely don't know. Some of the Republicans, I think, genuinely do have that like ideological commitment to the bootstrap shit. But for the Democrats, I couldn't tell you, except that I know they don't give a shit about people, but I don't know what their plan is.
They are ultimately, well, first of all, I don't think they have one. And secondly, they are ultimately accountable to their backers, which is to say capital, right? It's just that they need to do it in a way that is less egregiously trying to fuck the worker over. I think it's a real recipe, though, for a complete breakdown of any sort of trust in the American political system altogether, though, particularly around public health. Because on the Republican side of things, the conservative side of things, the red state side of things, you now have pretty broad-based consensus that there is no such thing as public health, and anything that might contribute to the public health that is being passed down sort of from the state, whether it is mandatory vaccination stuff, right, the standard set of vaccines, funding for health, any sort of health, matching funds, anything like that, unless it's Medicare, in which case, everybody still wants their entitlement. It's being treated as some sort of like a state conspiracy, right? But then on the Democratic side, if you believe in this idea of, I don't know, a fucking well-regulated health marketplace that the government is helping to regulate, and the costs are so egregiously out of control, which they certainly are, that there's no fucking way to afford it, then what do you end up even buying into? Unless you're fortunate enough to either have a long-standing tenured position somewhere with like a union job where the labor pool is solid enough that you can actually negotiate for a better rate on healthcare premiums and stuff like that, you're fucked. There's nothing you can do, and there's nobody in office who's actually fighting for you, as clearly demonstrated by the fact that the Democrats immediately folded when the time came to make sure that these ACA credits would remain on the books.
Yep.
It makes me fucking crazy.
Yeah.
You have to understand, I have been following this shit for a very, very long time. Like healthcare has been one of my like big issues for the longest time. I remember fucking canvassing for Obama back in the day, Obama getting into office, and as the Senate negotiations on the ACA came down to the wire, I remember when Obama signaled that they were no longer going to try to pursue the public option. I remember how betrayed we all felt, all of us who invested so much blood, sweat, and tears into trying to make this thing happen. And I said at that time, you know what? I'm not going to get fooled again. And I fucking did. I also got the Fell For It Again award. And I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I even like my psychiatrist was like, it might actually just be cheaper not to have insurance. She was like, because if certain things expire, now that they can just deny you coverage, there's like no more rules against that shit. So like you might just be paying hundreds or thousands of dollars a month and still not get your coverage when you need it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I do have good news, and it is that Dr. Oz, famous hero of the working class and head of Medicaid and
Famous
Medicare,
Turkish hero.
yes, said just a couple days ago, we have a comprehensive healthcare plan that's going to fix everything. And when they asked what it was, he said, "I'm not going to show you my cards just now." So I like ever since Trump, like over a year ago, said we have concepts of a plan in that one debate.
Yeah.
Like it has not evolved from there. They still have concepts of a plan.
A comprehensive, affordable healthcare plan localized entirely within your kitchen.
I love that. I love that you can just get away with the conspiracy of silence, no matter what. I mean, we've seen, person after person, the whole Mueller thing, the whole, the such hearings as there were about social media, when Mark Zuckerberg was dragged before Congress, like you can just get away with saying, "Oh, I don't know. Oh, I don't recall. I don't have that answer right away." And like, am I alone in thinking that answers like that should get you thrown in the brig?
Yeah. I mean, I think it should be a lot worse than that, if I'm being honest. But yes, yeah. I am in line with the trajectory that you're going in.
I like the idea that the White House and Congress has a thing called the brig attached to it, that if someone gives a bad answer to a reporter, just a bunch of people run and throw them down the chute into the brig.
That's actually what's under the East Wing.
That is.
They're renovating it right now.
So
We are a pro oubliette podcast here on.
Trump has been stress renovating. Like, my man got so stressed out by the Epstein stuff that he was like, "Oh man, I have to put a new addition on my house." It's like when your dad is like, "I want to build a deck," except it's gilded.
Every so often, my folks would just say, "We should move the furniture."
Yeah.
President Petro of Colombia said today says America is run by pedophiles, and to distract from that fact, you want to kill our people. And I'm like, yeah, that's basically.
He's damn right.
Yeah.
He's damn right.
Pretty crazy. Well, the last thing I wanted to touch on here was a little bit of good news. I mean, the Zohran thing is also good news in its own way, but I wanted to touch on something a little local here. We here in Atlanta, we did not elect a Muslim as our mayor. Andre Dickens will remain our mayor, unfortunately. And I will have to continue to see his face when I leave the Atlanta airport, looking like the most scary, truly frightening fellow.
One major reason, in and of himself, that there hasn't been a major a Chicago scale deployment to Atlanta because Dickens is doing everything Trump wants already.
I mean, yeah, literally when he got brought into office or the new legislative session started, he and Kemp literally had dinner and toasted to cooperation between Republicans and Democrats in the city of Atlanta. So that's pretty
Hell
cool.
yeah. We love bipartisan consensus.
We love to see it.
But we did here in the heart of the city elect Kelsey Bond, a open socialist, a non-binary person as well, which is not always the easiest sell anywhere, especially in Atlanta. And also somebody who has been a labor organizer, someone who has been in the trenches with the Starbucks union, winning actual shit, who was openly saying I am a socialist. Who is saying free Palestine, who is saying that we need to stop Cop City here in Atlanta, which has already opened and is doing its damage. And just through ground game and through knocking on doors and through mobilization was able to get on the city council. So that's something I wanted to highlight is some people are like, oh yeah, Zohran can happen in New York. And I'm like, no, well, what can happen? And whether it be through electoral politics or not, is you can talk to people about the shit they care about, which is the food on their table, which is their rent, which is their healthcare. And people care about that. People respond to that. And that is the kind of thing that class politics is something that we can have throughout the country. It's going to take different forms, but, and it may not always take, or may not only take electoral forms, but it is some shit that we're going to have to hammer, and it works here in Atlanta. It can work anywhere.
Well, that's really cool, Jacob. But what about maybe running on restoring the soul and fabric of our morality of our nation or whatever?
Yes, my understanding is that the 4 opponents running against Kelsey were trying for that, and
were they really?
Yeah, and Kelsey got 63% of the vote.
Nice
candidates.
Yeah,
so nobody wants to restore morality. Everybody's like, no, we need to there are wide moms who are like, I want to step on Donald Trump's throat with my high-heeled shoe.
Yeah.
These women are ready for blood. I also, another good thing I think that I would say is how absolutely the anti-trans stuff ate shit in this election. And it tends to not work on the electoral level because it's fucking weird. Stop being weird. Just be normal.
A lot of even transphobic people just don't really want to talk about it. It's just this is not what we should hang our hats on, and that's not enough. Don't get me wrong, that people just don't want to talk about it. That's not enough, but it is not you look at these Moms for Liberty elections. I mean, I'm correct in saying you covered Moms for Liberty on Ill-Conceived.
On Ill-Conceived, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, even these Moms for Liberties school board elections, a lot of them a lot of that shit didn't work just running on the trans, on trying to fearmonger about what's in kids' pants, and I think that's also though a lesson about once you achieve power, sometimes it's unpopular and you just wield it anyway. Donald Trump knows that, and maybe Zohran, just think about it. Just think about raising the Red Army.
Yeah, and that's
Who knows?
there's 27 states, I believe, that have passed in which there's now laws on the books restricting trans health care for minors. 26 if you count, like, I don't think everything that's passed in New Hampshire has taken effect yet. But that was all, except for one state, that was all passed within the past like 5 years. So
Yeah.
that shows you how unaccountable these things are to the, I mean, I don't imagine anybody who voted for, their particular legislator. I don't imagine a majority of people voted on the strength of that sort of thing happening.
Yeah.
It's there are different trends and forces governing that particular sweep.
The
Well, I mean,
Tennessee Secretary of State just today, like, put out an order that libraries needed to do an emergency closure in multiple cities like Murfreesboro to check for transgender content in the libraries. They did an emergency mass library closure. Like, just like, I mean, that's
Bring me every
insane, but
copy you
also,
can
like,
find of Whipping Girl.
but like,
I-
we need to just like look at these fucking freaks. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, sometimes
Yeah.
that's just what you need to say.
And I think too that, in terms of ballot initiatives for this kind of thing, it's only going to be effective as a turnout weapon for bigots. And
Mhm.
so I think that it's not a coincidence that you saw this stuff doing a bit better in the last presidential election because Donald Trump turned out a lot of bigots.
Mhm.
But ultimately, I think it says less about what people have an appetite for as a body politic and more to do with what bigots who like Donald Trump also want to see happen on a local and state level.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, Lenore, the thing you said about it being within the last 5 years, it just like how we can connect this episode to the last episode. Like we talked about in The Woods All Black, like the theme being about like things can be relatively okay, not great, but okay, and then something can change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And something did. It's like I don't know, it's really wild being in this backlash, but like I try to keep the perspective that like this happened to gay rights too, and we did ultimately win. I mean, obviously, like the fight is not over, but like I just trying to keep perspective. But man,
Well-
it would be nice to have some W's.
Well, on the subject of LGBTQWs, the Supreme Court went and told Kim Davis to pound sand this past week.
Yeah, that was great.
Hell yeah, that was awesome.
I'm
Maybe
sure
she'll
go
finally
away.
get a new fucking haircut. You look like a disaster, honey. Disaster.
Yeah, there's somebody who has never met a single queer person in her life because we would have had opinions.
Yeah.
Well, Kim Davis may have not met a queer person, but Josh has because he has podcasts with them. I don't know.
Good one. Good one. Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure
yeah,
they'll
yeah,
appreciate
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Josh, tell us
yeah,
about
hell
all
yeah.
the homosexuals you podcast with.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. Yeah,
Sure.
Josh, don't tell us about the podcast, just about the homosexuals you podcast with. That's what we want. Yeah, tell us about what you're up to, Josh.
Yeah,
You've got not one but two pods.
I certainly do.
We kind of do now, but we were like, keep it on one feed. We'll see how this works.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No. So I have two podcasts that I co-host, which are legally distinct entities, if you can
Yes.
believe that. Do a show called The Worst of All Possible Worlds. We talk about case studies in the pop culture of a dying empire. Every week it's a different piece of media. We unpack its narratives. We've got an episode coming out tomorrow. When is this episode coming out? The one that we're-
Tomorrow, so
Okay.
today.
So as of when you're listening to this, you can go over to our feed and listen to our Columbo episode. It should already be out. So
Hell yeah,
yeehaw.
brother.
And then also, yeah, Ill Conceived is the other show I do. It's a podcast about natalism, the political movement that sees declining birth rates as the most pressing issue facing modern society. We every week talk about a weird guy or a piece of the movement or whatever. Particular focus so far has been on Christians, evangelical Christians in particular. And now we're sort of turning our eye a little bit more toward tech weirdos. So, a little bit of something there for everybody. I co-host it with my friend June. We have a lot of fun. And so, yes, The Worst of All Possible Worlds and Ill Conceived can be found in your favorite podcast client. That's really all I have to say about that. You can also find my website, joshboerman.com, or follow me on Blue Sky at bosh.worstpossible.world.
Good shit. Good shit. And the three of us have all been on Worst of All Possible Worlds.
That is true.
And will be again in the future.
That's
with
right.
me and Lenore.
Sooner than later.
Sooner than later. Who knows? Yeah. So that's and also Josh has been on Socialist Shelf 5 times.
I have.
So
is it 5? Yeah. Was this no?
5
But this
times,
is
is 6.
6 now.
Yes, this is 6.
We
I
need
only
to
lapped
do something. We need to do something
by
with the
joining
bust.
the show.
What's up?
Yeah. I said I only lapped him by joining the show.
Yes, by joining the show was how you were. AJ is now said he's angling to get 5, so we'll make a bust of him.
Okay.
He's at
Well, that's
3.
great.
So
Now,
that's
what do we
respectable.
do? What do we do with the bust when you hit 10? Do we add color to it?
I think that you need to
You give him a huge pair of tits.
you record a video in your car where you're talking into the camera as you drive by.
That's good.
I want to see. I'm
what is
Jacob,
your name?
and I'm driving. Well, your name can be Jacob, but my name is Fred, and I'm driving by.
No, my name is Fred, and I'm fucking driving by. Baby.
Let's go. Ooh, yeah.
All right, folks.
How about some drive-by with Fred?
How about some drive-by? All right, folks. We will be back next week with the news, and also make sure you listen to our book episodes on the same feed. This is the Workers Lit crew signing off.
Take care.
Bye.